it's probably going to keep doing it, though.
Yay!
Staying
Hi.
open. Okay, so I just have to turn it off whenever I'm not talking then?
No, I think you're okay now. It was just you were pushed to the bottom of the stack because Jess was on here like 3 times or something.
Okay, but it looks like Cindy can't talk now.
I think we have muted ourselves to see if you would be able to. Cindy, you want to try? Try to mute yourself.
No, it doesn't seem to be working. Cindy, maybe try leaving and coming back. There you go.
I love your headset.
Oh, thank you.
I was going to use mine. I think it's the same one, but in white.
Oh, yeah, same one. Yep.
For gaming.
Yeah, my laptop speakers just suddenly died for some reason, so that's why I have the headset on. Okay, so we are streaming live now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is a panel on geeks and nerds. So I think all of us here in the chat can understand being a geek and a nerd, as we were talking about gaming headsets. And we have Star Wars t-shirt, and we have a Chewie hoodie that Jenn Thompson is wearing. So welcome. So we have Millie Taiden, TB Mann, Nathan Burgoine, Jay Thompson, Godiva Glenn, and Celine Chatillon. Hopefully, we're having some technical difficulties, but hopefully she will be able to join us. So what I'd like to do to start off, and I'm Jenn Burke, by the way, but hopefully I won't be talking all that much. What I'd like to do to start off is just, oh, there we go. Hi, Cindy, or Celine. So we'll have everybody introduce themselves, and when you introduce yourself, can you please tag somebody else to introduce themselves, and then we'll go through with, hopefully without a lot of talking over each other. So I'm going to say, Nathan, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then tag somebody else.
All right. Hi, I'm Nathan Burgoine. I live here in Ottawa. I think most of us are Ottawa or from Ottawa. I write mostly queer spec fic and romance. Generally, it's some sort of intersection of the two of those. So basically, it's our world, generally speaking, but with a little bit of magic or a little bit of sidekick, but always with some nerds or some geeks. That's you know how they say, write what you know. Well, yeah. So I'm gonna pass it right on to Millie.
This is Millie Taiden. I write paranormal romance with lots of curvy girls and alpha guys. I have a series called Alpha Geek with some very geeky fun guys that go all alpha on you. I do a lot of geeky females throughout my series as well. And now I will pass it along to Godiva Glenn.
Hello. So yeah, I'm Godiva Glenn, and I do paranormal romance. My primary is wolf shifters, who are pretty naughty. I also write in Millie's World with 2 different series. I have Otherworld Agents and Otherworld Shifters. And I mean, I'm a huge geek, so I just kind of let it bleed into my writing as it comes. It's a lot of little geeky jokes and references throughout a lot of my writing. But yeah, that's me, Godiva, and I'll go ahead and pass it to Jenn.
Thanks, honey. Hi, I'm Jay Thompson, or Jenn, to most people. I'm from the UK, central UK, around about between Birmingham and Manchester. Weather is gorgeous right now for the UK, just thought I'd let you know. I write paranormal romance and recently sci-fi romance. I got dragged into that by my hair. I have a few geeks in mine. One of my main geek characters is my librarian from Cupid's Essence. She's your typical geek. She collects things, but then again, I think we all do. And yeah, that's really it. So I'll pass you on to Cynthia.
Is that me? Hi, I'm Cindy. I write under two different pen names, fiction, Cynthiana and Celine Chatillon. Um, I think all of my heroes are probably geeks, and most of my heroines are also geeks and nerds because I think that's the people I grew up with and people I'm most familiar with. Thinking who my biggest geek heroine is, Cece, probably in the Loving Who series, and her romance is with a time traveler from another planet who's very radically not human, but she sees him as human. Most people do because of his telepathy powers. John Smith, he's also pretty much a geek, but you know, he MacGyvers everything, it seems like. So I find that sexy, guys that can fix things with just, you know, bubble gum and a piece of wire and some string. And I don't know who else to pass it to because I can't see anyone else on my screen. So
I think the next one would be TB Mann.
yeah,
Hi.
okay.
Yep. I'm Twyla, or also write as TB Mann, and yeah, I write romance, whether it be paranormal or contemporary. Usually, what ties all my books together is I like to say that one man isn't just always enough. So most of mine will have two or three or more men who our lovely heroine gets to keep and gets to live her life out with them. I like to write the non-traditional geeky males and geeky females, where quite often they're not just the geek or the nerd, but they're also straddling the lines of being the jock or, you know, some type of thing that you don't always associate, mostly because a lot of the guys that I grew up with, they straddled both of them. They were either, you know, they fell in with the academic crowd or they fell in with the sports crowd or things like that. And they also fell in with the gamers and the geeks and the nerds. So they straddled. So those are the types of people I like to write about. So I think I was the last one. So Jenn, I'll turn it back to you.
Sorry, I had mute on. What struggles and motivations are unique in stories about nerds and geeks?
Who did you want to start with?
That's an open question for anybody.
All right, I guess I can go. One of the struggles for me was writing a geeky alpha male because I tend to like alpha males, and so the in some books it was easier because they could just be a very intelligent type of alpha males, very scientific. So that was not that hard, but I found a lot more fun when I took um, maybe an insecure type of geeky guy and turned him into that strong, um, very sexy guy that all women, would want, with the added bonus that he's super intelligent and also super nice because he wasn't always this alpha male. So that was a lot of fun. Okay, I'll pass it along to Jenn.
Thanks, Millie. For me, it was probably one of the main things with geeks is they struggle with self-worth. I know as a geek, I do. So, you try to get that across on the page. You try to get across that they don't see their own value, and it takes a lot for them to open up to the hero, heroine, to accept themselves as the other person sees them. So getting that across and putting that much feeling in there can at times feel like you're typing absolute tripe across the page because you're like, oh, feeling, mushy stuff. Oh, maybe I've gone too far. But then it brings the character more to life. So yeah, that's how I find it. Godiva, your turn.
I think I'm kind of losing track of the question, but I think it was asking about like the struggles, I guess, in writing Geeks, right? So I think the hardest part was trying to keep it fun and funny without losing relatability, because I always have to remember that like I'm pretty much one of the geekiest people that I know. Like I was married on the Enterprise. Like I'm really geeky. And so when I was writing, it was just how do I add enough context so that a lot of what I say and a lot of like the little subtle jokes still come across as funny or can be figured out through context for anyone who's reading this, like, you know, who's Commander Riker, you know, like things like that. But it's really fun. But yeah, I guess that would be my struggle, is just kind of keeping it relatable for all of the readers who may never have, you know, messed with like Star Trek or Star Wars or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Twyla.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of like Jenn. I like writing about the guys who, or the people who just really struggle with self-worth, but not just the self-worth. I like to showing how they can sometimes be socially awkward in different areas, but in areas that we all tend to struggle with sometimes. Like even the most charismatic person will get into situations where they're not sure of themselves, where what they say just may not meet or match with the other people. So those are some of the things that I really struggle with trying to put in, because I want the people to realize that we're all this way. We all have parts of geekiness or nerdiness or, you know, whatever in us. We're not just a one-dimensional person. So I try really hard to do that, and that's where I struggle too. So I'm going to pass it on over to Cindy.
Cindy, you can press Control D to unmute. Cindy, you'll need to unmute. If you can press Control D, or you can click the little down button beside your name.
No. No.
There you go.
Is it working?
You're suddenly sideways. That's interesting. Okay, yes, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Okay. I'm on a tablet. It might make it, I can't turn myself off and on. You guys can do it for me, but it won't let me do it, I guess. This is a new thing. I just got it in the mail. This is COVID-19 for you. Mail order things and they arrive at your door where the UPS man throws it at you and no instructions. And I forgot what the question was about Geeks. I know that.
Yeah, it was about what struggles and motivations are unique to stories with geeks and nerds.
I think most of you all hit on the high points about, you know, geeks and nerds are living in a society that values mostly, oh, you're beautiful, or you're very athletic, or you're very rich, or you're very something else. And it hasn't always valued people who are very smart, who are very knowledgeable, maybe in a very narrow range of topics, such as, you know, they know all the Star Trek episodes, or they're a big Star Wars fan. But, you know, I think find Geeks and Nerds sexy because they do spend a lot of information, a lot of energy into details. They're very detail-oriented persons, and that can be wonderful in a romantic hero or heroine because they notice everything about heroine. You know, they notice her eye color, they notice how she dresses, they notice what she likes, what she watches on TV, of course, because they both share a lot of things in common. Maybe you'd hope. And so there's a lot of sexy and romanticness in being a geeky, nerdy type person that I think the wider society is more black and white, and you're either gorgeous or a movie star looking, or you're nobody. You're not considered romantic, a potential partner. So I think that's what we have to struggle with, is to get that across, how sexy being a geeky person can be and nerd can be. And I think we're getting there slowly in the 21st century, but we have a ways to go yet, because we still seem to put the most famous movie stars are the gorgeous ones up on the screen first, and then everybody else is usually seen as the second fiddle. But I think we will switch that maybe in the next century, I hope.
Okay, and I think, Nathan, you are the only one who hasn't said anything about this topic yet, and then we'll go on to some questions from the audience.
So one of the things I love about writing about geeks and nerds that's also difficult is that, for me, one of the joys is that I'm writing, in a way, competence porn. Like, so these are people who really know a lot about something. And often it's the kind of stuff that isn't necessarily what's considered sexy. So, like, you got your firefighters or your police officers or your soldiers. People see that as a very traditional, masculine, attractive thing. I'm writing about a guy who can code, like, working that as to something that's attractive. It can take a little bit of work and also homework. I mean, I am a nerd about quite a few things and a geek about quite a few things. Luckily, I also married someone who got a perfect GPA in mathematics and physics and computer programming, so I can bounce a lot of questions off him. But there's a lot of research involved if you are writing a geek or a nerd that's outside your realms of knowledge, or especially if you're trying to write someone who is hyper competent in something sciencey, especially, which is where I find a lot of nerds tend to land. So
That is a perfect segue to the question, actually, that came in on the live stream, which was, how much research do you have to do to get a subject believable? For example, characters involved with scientific research, computer hackers, that kind of thing. So I'm going to choose somebody at random. Let's go with Jenn Thompson to start with.
Okay. Right. Bit difficult for me. I haven't actually written many computer nerds as yet. If that makes sense. I did write my first sci-fi last year, which went into an anthology this year. The research going into that just to make, and obviously with paranormal and sci-fi, you've got that amazing option of making stuff up. I love it. That's why I can't write contemporary. It's too normal. But there's an element to when you're making stuff up, you have got to put it on an element of truth to make it sound believable. So because otherwise I have had readers going, that's not believable. Well, it's got a dragon in it, so how much believable do you want it to go? So with anything, research is key, because you've got to make sure you're hitting those beauty spots for the readers and you're drawing them in. So that's what I think, anyway.
Okay, let's go to Nathan. Since you started, you mentioned that. What kind of research have you done for some of your characters?
Oh God, I've done research on computer programming, and luckily I'm married to one. So I'm married to a software developer. So a lot of my nerds tend to be people who work with computers, because I can lean over and say, is this possible? Is this not possible? And he's very quick to tell me if something is not possible. It's impossible to watch any sort of hacker movie on television with my husband, because he's like, no, that would never work. I've done a lot of research into like app development was the last thing that I really cut my teeth on. So for one of my characters, he was building an app, and he was trying to turn it into a game about queer history, of all things, kind of like a Pokemon Go, but about history. And so I looked into what it took, and sort of a decent timeline of expectation and how much you'd have to be working on it. So it was actually quite easy to make him a homebody when I found out the number of hours it takes to come up with something like that. So that was probably the last thing I did a ton of research on. And honestly, to do it, I just reach out to people I think like a lot of authors, there's a lot of people in my circles who have a day job as well as writing. And I find the author whose day job closer matches what I'm trying to write. And often they can, at least if they don't know it, they can connect me to someone who does.
Great. And how about Millie? What kind of research do you do for your geeky characters?
For my science geeks, there's a lot of looking up just what something means or what a job entails. And for the computer geeks, I have had to contact people to ask them, um, if somebody wanted to hack something, how would they go about it? And you can't, yes, there is making up. I have made up a lot of stuff. And I think if once you mix that up with reality, it's not as bad as just making up the whole thing, because then, somebody that might even know a little bit would be like, get out of here. This is unbelievable. Of course, we are talking paranormal with me. So come on. If you believe that a guy can turn into a werewolf, then we have other problems. But yes, that is it takes a lot of research when it comes to reading, probably looking up scientific things, and also asking people, just asking people that might know, maybe asking people that know someone who knows. So I'll give it back to you, Jenn.
Great. Let's go with Godiva. What kind of research have you done for your geeky characters?
Okay, well, a lot of my geeky, like super geekier characters are still coming. But so I mostly just kind of rely on my friends. So I started computer programming in high school, and it was my major until the English department stole me. But then even my master's was actually in library and information systems. So I have like a lot of background with like computer and geeky stuff like that. And I mean, I'm not a hacker, but I actually have a friend who was a hacker. So I can always kind of go in that angle. One of my more recent books involved like lab experiments and things like that. And I found myself kind of wondering, even though I did do a lot of research, looking up like science terms and everything like that, you get to this point where the majority of readers, because I mean, it's romance first, they don't require you to be, as precise, I think, as if you were specifically writing in like sci-fi. Like if you're writing in sci-fi, they expect you to know much more than if you're writing in romance. Because when you're writing in romance, you want to kind of keep it technical and realistic, but you also want to keep it entertaining. And the reality is that sometimes the real process is boring and you can't really work with it. So I think to an extent, you kind of like, you take your research, what you can from friends, from Google, from scientific journals, and then you just kind of like put it in a blender with creativity to get something that people are actually going to want to read and not like fall asleep during.
That's a really good point, and that probably leads to the problem that Nathan's husband has with all those hacker movies, where they have to make the whole hacking experience look, really interesting, where they're zooming through the computer, which is absolute garbage. But anyway, okay, so let's go to Cindy. What kind of research have you done for your geeky characters? Sorry, Cindy, I can't unmute you. You'll have to do it. It's Control D if you can manage, or you can click beside you.
Had to do that either.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I tried Control. It won't work on this tablet for some reason. It just doesn't do it. Yeah, and I had no idea this wasn't going to work, so forgive me on that. So I didn't do my geeky research on this. I was just I needed something, and a friend told me I had a good deal on this, so I went with it. I'm just going to say ditto to everyone else said, and then also I like to get out and talk to people, so I tend to write more blue collar geeky people that are just everyday working people, not necessarily college educated or have computer skills like that. So, I need somebody who was a cake decorator. So I made a heroine that worked at a bakery and then watched her, how she baked cakes and decorated cakes. And so it's just a matter of looking at details in life and going out and meeting people. Also, you can, of course, watch videos and watch movies and TV shows and watch people in different job skills sets, and usually that's enough to make a full round character because you're not really writing a book about them as a computer hacker or as a luggage handler, which I had as my first hero in my first novel, The Fixer Upper. But I've been in enough airports, so I knew people that threw luggage around and the things that they have to do underneath airplanes. You knew enough to make their job realistic to the reader. And then, of course, you're going to probably be more emphasizing the romance and the relationship when they're not quite at work because they're with the heroine or the hero. And so, most getting out and talking to people and meeting people from different walks of life and also having millions of different jobs too. You learn a little bit in each one of them and you can use that in a different character along the way.
Good point. History, we can always draw from history of our own history. And last but not least, Twyla, what kind of research have you done?
Well, I've done, usually I tend to keep it fairly surface based as well because I don't tend to have a lot of time or my characters that isn't the main goal. It's more their personality rather than just their job. So I usually keep it fairly generalized, but otherwise I'm similar. I go to the people around me. I'm actually very blessed to have some extremely smart people in my family. So between my husband, who's an engineer, and my oldest son, who's like a microbiologist or actually biochemistry with all the other stuff, and another one who's a math major who's racking up scholarships, and another daughter who's an engineer. I've got that resource base right next to me, which is really wonderful. And then I've got my own medical background, so it makes it a little easier to come up with just that surface stuff, at least that's needed to make the character believable, but without getting into the heavy duty technical stuff, because otherwise they're talking way over my head usually.
Right, and that's the sort of thing that isn't really going to draw readers in anyway. They're looking for that high level stuff. So that's great. Okay, so we have a question for Millie in the chat. Somebody is wondering if you're going to write any more of the Alpha Geek series.
Actually, yes, I am. I have at least 2 more scheduled for the rest of the year, amongst other projects. But I'm very excited to see the series going. I am really happy that people seem to like them so much. Who knew that geeky alphas were a thing? So yeah, I'm very happy with it, and they will be at least 2 more books this year. I still have to decide where I will hit the end button on it, but so far I still like them, so they'll keep coming.
Great, thank you. And another question here, fun question. What are your favorite fandoms or fandom, and have you written any fan fiction about them? So let's start off with Cindy.
Working? I think it's working. Yay. Maybe.
Yep, we can hear you. Go
My
ahead.
screen went black, so is this still working? Okay, good. I think it's the bandwidth. Oh gosh, I'm in so many fandoms. I grew up in Star Trek with my dad and my brothers, unfortunately, and that segued into Doctor Who. And he came to the US, and so broadcasting on PBS, and now I'm married to a Brit, so we're big Doctor Who fans, and I've written the Loving Who series, which is about Doctor Who fans. So, oh my gosh, let's see, Babylon 5, okay, Deep Space Nine, I was a really big fan, and that series of Star Trek. But yeah, I've written some fan fiction and Blake 7 a while back, a long time ago. Still wish that series would come back, but I like to write about fans because they're fun people. So I actually worked that in the Loving Who series and a couple other of my books. I've had people who are Uber fans and mentioned their fans because unfortunately, I'm a big fan of about everything I ever watched, more than 2 seasons of. So I'll pass it on to someone else because I know we're all probably big fans of different shows, series.
Awesome. Let's go over to Nathan.
Okay, so the embarrassing one is probably I wrote an entire Next Generation fanfic about the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. So after the kids finally made it back home, some of them married and some of them they had children, and I did a whole second generation story of them going back to the realms to rescue their parents. And no, I won't tell you the name that's under. And then the other one I did was actually a play-by-email game with Last Unicorn Games' version of Star Trek, where we did all of Star Trek Voyager over again while it was playing, but with our own crew. So we decided different people survived. And it was a group of us, and we were all writing it together. So I was the sort of moderator and the person in charge. So I played Lieutenant Commander Cavett. So basically, we took all the characters who died in the first episode and flipped it. And then we did every episode trying to figure out how they would have done it without all the other characters. And so that was probably my longest ongoing fan fiction thing.
That sounds really cool.
It was.
Godiva, obviously Star Wars and Star Trek are some of your favorite bits of fandom, judging by your shirt and the fact that you got married on the Enterprise, which, by the way, the audience is completely blown away by that. There was a couple of questions or a couple of comments about how that was very, very cool. So just so you know. So what other fandoms, or what have you written any fan fiction for Star Trek, Star Wars, or any other fandoms?
It's one of those things where there would be a massive checklist of all of the fandoms, Doctor Who, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Oh God, that was like a huge one. Like I obsessed with like The Hobbit and everything when I was younger. It was pretty embarrassing. It's probably why I did not have a lot of friends growing up, to be honest. I have written some fan fiction. It's not published. It's mostly for games, like Fallout. I have like Fallout erotica fan fiction that I've written. But like, yeah, I mean, as far as like embarrassing stuff and everything, I'm just going to throw this out there. I LARP. So yeah, I LARP and I play Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm just probably the most embarrassing person in this room. Yeah.
I think that's awesome. LARPing is cool. I've never gotten into it, but anybody who does, you have some respect because it takes a lot of effort. So that's awesome. Jenn Thompson, what are some of your favorite fandoms?
Oh, there we go. I'm an 80s child, so as such, I got brought up on Conan, Labyrinth, Willow, the traditional greasy, cheesy, brilliant films. So I grew up on that, and then Lord of the Rings came out, and I lost it. Hobbit, oh yeah. But then I discovered role playing on Twitter. So I never wrote fan fiction. I was an RPer. So my fandoms on role playing was actually J.R. Ward's Black Dagger Brotherhood series. I had an original character from the next generation of BDB. I was Torment's lost child, Essence. Still actually have the account, not been on it in a while. And I was also Cadder in the Cold from the Immortals After Dark series by Cressley Cole. I still hold that account too. And she knows about it, which blew my mind. So yeah, I was never a fan fiction, but I was an RPer, and RPing, some may think it's embarrassing, but it that's what took me into the world of writing and gave me the confidence to become an author and to get my words down on paper. So, but if you give me any fantasy cheesy movies, I'm there. Willow, Labyrinth, you name it, Masters of the Universe, Legend, just give them to me. I love them. The ace.
So awesome. Millie, what about you? Fandoms, fan fiction?
Well, I have watched, I think, just enough of the DC Marvel movies and the Star Trek and the all. My husband is a massive fan of Star Wars, so have been forced to watch them, and secretly enjoying them, of course. And it's all helped me to be able to use it all in my geek books. I have a whole DC versus Marvel thing going in some of my Alpha Geeks, which was fun because it's not every day that you have a character call Spider-Man a pussy and things like that. So it was great to write, and because my son loves he's a more of a bad guy person. So it's always fun for me to try to have a character that likes those guys instead of the good guys. And that was one of the things that I've enjoyed using in my geek books. But I've only known enough based on other people's interests actually than my own. I'm more of a crime reader, a watcher, things like that. Um, but I use like my family as test subjects to when I'm writing. I ask them if something their thoughts on things, and they always give me their opinion, and somehow it makes its way into a book. So
Cool. Tyler, your fandoms or fan fiction? Oh, Twilight might be frozen. Twilight, I think we're having technical difficulties with you. We can't hear you. Can you try talking now? No, can't hear you, honey. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Twyla, if we can get your mic back, let me know. Okay, Twyla has left. She'll probably come back. We had a question for Jenn and from Amanda. Jenn, besides your dragons, what else do you have planned for this year?
Hi, Amanda. They actually messaged me on Facebook earlier. Yeah, Dragon was released. I've got a couple of epic stories coming for the Magic and Mayhem series. I'm really looking forward to those. The first one is called Witch Out of Water, and it has tentacles in it. Just gonna leave that there. And a Tourette pigeon. Not sure how I got that one in. I'm hoping to re-release Betraying Corin, which is my first cyborg novel that was in the anthology when that becomes available, and the second story for that will be out later on this year. I'm also hoping to get out the next book in the Dark Desire series, which is my Succubi Demon story. And then whatever else comes along, because the characters do the talking, I'm not in control, they are, then I will probably let them have a go, because I can't control them. I'm fed up of trying. I'm drinking far too much alcohol to try and numb them, but it's not working.
I think that's probably the story of a lot of us around here, dealing with this isolation is a lot of alcohol. Twyla, are you back?
I am now.
Okay, cool. So if you want to put in your 2 cents on fandoms and if you've written any fan fiction.
Let's see. I'm one of those who's just a watcher. I watched a lot of the science fiction and the Marvel and DC mostly because I was dragged to it by my kids. So I watch it and when I was younger, but I've actually never written anything in it or have delved too deeply into it, other than the big embarrassing Wesley Crusher poster on my wall when I was a teenager. But that's about it.
That totally counts.
That's right.
Like everybody of a certain age, I think, had a crush on Wesley Crusher.
I think so too. He was that ultimate geeky guy.
Exactly. It's perfect for this conversation.
That's it.
Okay, so we had another question from the audience. Where do you guys all get your inspiration from? Anybody can jump in on that one.
I just wake up in the morning and see something, and that can be the inspiration for something that day. But often it's in conversation with people who, if you'd ever told them that you gave me the great idea for a series, they would never believe you because they're just everyday people that you might meet at church or at a school or just at a community meeting, and they just say something or point something interesting out to you. Go, oh wow, what if that happened instead of that, or what? And you just get going, and you have a story idea. But yeah, I think that's just writers for you. We find inspiration in some really bizarre and sometimes mundane things. Don't have to be too unusual, but we just take it from there. That's where it gets unusual.
This is gonna sound really weird, but I get a lot of ideas in the shower, or in the bath or in the pool, anything with water, really. Um, and a lot of times, the ideas are, like the whole story, or sometimes just a character comes. And other times, I get the idea while I'm writing a book for the next book. So it'll be like, oh, this is happening now, but hey, this is going to happen in the next story. And so that makes it easier to, I don't know, it tends to happen a lot, for me, that they tend to stay linked that way because whatever the next book is going to have, the idea came from the previous, and so they're linked somehow in some way. But yeah, I definitely get a lot of ideas in the shower, in the bath.
I'm going to jump into that and say I also get ideas when I'm walking the dog. I'll be doing something or listening to a podcast or something like that, and then boom, I'm like, oh, that's an idea. I'm also going to pull the lid off the. Sometimes I write for spite. I don't know that we often admit that, but so like when I wrote Handmade Holidays, for example, I was sick to death of all the holiday romances that were basically just, hey, your family is everything. Get back with your family no matter what they've done. Reconcile with your family because the holidays are all about family. And I'm like, where are the stories for people like me that don't have their family anymore? So I think sometimes for me, just the fact that I'm writing a queer story means I can start with a trope that's been done. And just by writing queer characters, I already have a fresh new idea or a fresh new angle to go with.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that question?
I'll give it a go.
Sure.
As I said, 80s kid, grew up on fantasy. Anything like that can give me a plot bunny. Like we watched Assassin's Creed last night, and I'm sat there and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I can do something with that. I can take this person and do this, or it'll be my husband has a thing about daring me to put a sentence or a word into a story. It can be the most bizarrest word. Cupid's Essence, for example, it has quite a bit of swearing in it. It also has moist, and another word that went with it. I also got moist into a story I'm writing at the moment, and it slid in quite nicely. So he'll dare me, but he'll dare me before I've even started the story. So sometimes a story can be around the most weirdest word he's given me, and be like a sausage wallet. So that's just the thing we have going, and it could be walking, or when I'm asleep, I will wake up with the most randomest idea, and I will have no choice but to get up, grab a pen, grab my notebook, and write just a basic idea down. And that's how the Dark Desire series was born. Or I'm at work, so real life job, dental nurse, I'm doing suction on somebody, and my mind will wander, and it'll literally, something will happen. I'll be like, ooh, oh, sorry, I got your tongue there. It's the it'll be the randomest thing, and the dentist go, Jen, you're right. Yeah, just give me 2 seconds. I need to write this down. It's one of them.
That's awesome. Okay, so we had a couple more questions from the audience. One, Nikki asks, do you have a soundtrack for writing? Like, what do you listen to while writing if you do? And anybody can jump in
I
on
really
that.
want to answer this one. Because I get this question a lot, and I listen to the weirdest thing. So I go on like YouTube, and I go to like ASMR, and for specific things, and I find that I can't write when there are discernible lyrics because my brain wants to follow those. So I have a few that I listen to. Like one of them's it's a cabin with a crackling fireplace and rain beating on the windows is one, and another one is like a tea stream where it's like really like kind of like hushed, muted chatter in the background where you can't make out any words, but you know it's like supposed to be people talking. And every now and then, like they'll pour the tea and stir it and tap the spoon. And I know that sounds really weird, but it's very helpful. That and the Studio Ghibli soundtracks, they're amazing, especially if you get like just a cello piano version of the songs. So that's what I write to.
I usually just listen to Brain FM. It just helps me focus. I can't have like people talking and all that other stuff. It's very distracting for me. But yeah, I don't. If possible, I will stay with no noise. But to focus, I will use Brain FM.
I've done it once or twice for scenes, but for the most part, I don't use music all the time while I'm writing, just scenes. So, like if for in Exit Plans for Teenage Freaks, there's a song by Lit that's "I'm in over" something like "I'm in over your head" or "I'm in over my head" or something like that. I had that on repeat during a chase scene I was writing because it helped me keep the pace going. But that's the only time I think I've ever actually gone looking for a song for it. I've had songs inspire stories, but I'm not sure that I don't often go looking for music to write. No.
I don't write to music either. It has to be instrumental. I'm the same as Godiva in that, if there's lyrics, I start to focus in more on what they're saying and trying to figure that out than I am what I'm writing. So most of the time, actually, I write with the TV on so that it's not quiet. So, like right now, when I'm sitting down and writing, because we've got the TV going so much, trying, just for background, that we've gone through so many series lately that after the watching all 4 seasons of the unit recently, we're now back onto Star Trek Next Generation. So that's actually what I listen to right now while I'm writing. So it has nothing to do with what I'm writing, but hey, it works.
So I recently had to write in an anthology, and it has to have something about a note or a letter in the story. And I was listening to a Sting album with Message in a Bottle. So that got me writing about a message in a bottle. And then I had no idea about what the name of the heroine. Usually I have a heroine in my mind, and this time it worked kind of the opposite way with the hero writing the message. And it was Roxanne was the next song on this. She became Roxanne. So I thought that was rather interesting because usually I have to have classical music or smooth jazz or something without the words. I kind of just like a mellow sound in the background usually. But yeah, it was interesting to listen to some words and it just kind of hit me like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Her name is Roxanne. I go, oh yeah, that was the song, wasn't it? I think it was subconscious at the time.
Right. And we had one more question. It's for Nathan. Will there be a sequel to Save the Date?
Oh, okay. So there kind of already is. Angela wrote Saving the Hounds, and that's either, I don't know if it's out or if it's coming out soon. I'm sorry, I should know that, but I don't know it off my head. So my co-author for Saving the Date, Angela Stone, wrote one, Saving the Hounds. But in a way, because Saving the Date is one of my village stories, so since Saving the Date, there's already been Fo Ho Ho, and then next up is going to be Village Fool. So there'll be crossover characters, but I don't have another Madame Eve story in the pipeline. No, if you're asking specifically about the One Night Stand series, I don't have another one for that yet. No, I'm sorry.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have about 9 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is give each of the panelists a chance to say if they're having a giveaway and where people can find the information on that giveaway. So we'll just go through the list. We'll start with Nathan.
So I didn't have time to put a giveaway together in any sort of meaningful fashion, but what I will do is if you post a comment on the Nathan Burgoine fan Facebook page or my website or Twitter or wherever, just tell me that you watched this, it's fine, and I'll enter you into a draw, and I have e-copies of Fo Ho Ho. So we'll do Christmas in July because it's isolation. No one knows what day it is anyway.
That's a great point. Cindy?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you just say you watch this and you put a note on my Facebook page, it's at Celine Chatillon on Facebook. Just say you watch this, and I give you either a copy of my latest Celine Chatillon story, Aphrodite 1, or my holiday story, The Gift of the Songbird, if you like it a little bit more G-rated romance. It's a historical romance.
Great, thank you. Godiva?
Okay, so yeah, I'm unorganized because I was actually out of my house before I came and did this live. So I had kind of wanted to do something for giving away some copies of Tough Shift. So just like everybody else, find me on Facebook. Don't message me on Twitter because Twitter's just so confusing to me now. I can't do it. Just find me on Facebook. I have both a personal and an author page. So either one of them. Just like leave me a message on my wall or shoot a comment into my message box, and I'll choose somebody at random and I'll give away some copies of Tough Shift, which is a paranormal reverse harem, but it's kind of like got some sci-fi geeky vibes in it.
Awesome, that sounds great. Jenn?
Okay, I'm a bit the same, unorganized. Sorry. But find me on Facebook and a bit different. Give me a quote from your favorite cheesy movie. Give me a quote. The one I like the best will get a little surprise from me. Okay, and I might go find everybody else's giveaways because they all sound really good too. So
Millie?
Alrighty. So my giveaway is actually really easy. Just go to my Facebook and comment, on my wall and tell me what you like about Geeks. That's my giveaway, and I'll randomly pick somebody to win some gift cards. So again, just my Facebook and tell me what you like about Geeks.
Awesome. And Twyla?
So, for this weekend only, I put my first book in my hockey series up for free. So that's on Amazon. So anybody is welcome to just go there and search my name and for TB Man, and Junior A is up for free for this weekend for anyone. And if you want, you could also join the Rebels of Romance group on Facebook, because the PA in there is going to be doing a drawing for the second book in my hockey series. And yeah, or otherwise, if you don't join there but you'd still like to go in for a drawing for the second book, feel free to just put anything on either one of my walls, either my page or the profile, and yeah, just say you saw me on RTC and I'll do a random drawing for the second book as well.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We have a couple more minutes, so I just wanted to open it up to see if anybody has any more thoughts on the whole geeks and nerds thing in romance before we close it out.
If it's okay, I would like to invite readers to join the MT Worlds group on Facebook to look it up. We have lots of geeky books in there that you guys will enjoy. And I hope that they will come in there and check them out. I will also like to say that I will have more Alpha Geek, like I said earlier, but I also have another series of books coming soon with some other geeky characters. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Great. I'm sure everybody will be excited about those and looking forward to them. Anybody else? Last thoughts?
Hope to see some of you all in St. Louis at Archon going on this October. And I'm so sorry that a lot of the conventions were canceled here in March, April, and May, because I was looking forward to seeing the friends in Cleveland and Columbus. So stay safe, everybody. And hopefully all these things will be on next year at the normal times.
All right. If there's no more thoughts, I think we'll call it a session. Thank you all of our audience who's watching the stream, and for all of our panelists who participated. Really appreciate it. And big shout out to Jessica Ripley and Yves Langlais for allowing us to use their forum for these awesome sessions to help us all get through this weirdness of isolation. So take care, and hopefully we'll see you again.